All right, everyone, welcome back to the Golf Unfiltered podcast. We've got a full crew here again. We've got Nikki, we've got Jonathan over there at House Dunnigan. We've got Trevor Reese, and we've got Dan Hauser over there. Dan, is that a Memphis hat? What hat do you got on today?
That is a Miami Hurricanes hat. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
vintage from a vintage apparel company I found. So this apparently was their school's logo in the late 60s.
Wow. Oh,
I
Trevor's
figured
not a
since
fan.
You had to
since
bring
I
it up
was
Miami, didn't you?
well, I literally just got off of an RV that was in Gainesville yesterday that I was on. So sorry that I have not had a chance to even, I guess, compose myself more or change. But yeah, I was driving all morning, and here I am. So I'm back.
Here you are. Yeah, you were out many places this weekend. It is college football weekend. It was the beginning for many schools and the ending for some schools, depending on how you look at it for the college football season. But before we get into this week's action, I want to remind everyone that we are powered by True Linkswear. Go out and visit truelinkswear.com. Use promo code Unfiltered15. Save you some cash. They've got some good end of year. I can't believe it's the end of summer already. But end of summer sales they've got. They also have a really cool deal on some limited edition. Only 100 of these sets have been made. Jonathan, you should go pick one up. New Level irons are out there. Dead golfer emblems on it. They're out there. Yeah, it's pretty sick.
I don't need
one, so
I would take some.
So I've got a quick true story that I can share really quick just as a shout out to them. So I have never worn a pair of joggers a day in my life. My lovely wife knew that I was going to be doing a lot of traveling, as you mentioned, this past weekend. I spent a lot of time in an RV going throughout the country the last couple of days. So she bought me a pair of True Linkswear joggers. I ran into all sorts of horrible, horrific travel delays on Thursday and spent many extra hours, more than I needed to, in and out of airports, in and out of various places. I had those joggers on for probably a good 17, 18 hours. The most comfortable pair of pants, shorts, anything that I have ever put on. And I'm very happy that I spent the day in those because it didn't feel like I was even slogging around in pants all day. So shout out once again to the fine folks at True for making quality products.
Well done, Dan. Well, it's high praise from Florida Man Dan for the True Linkswear.
Now come out with those Florida Man shoes already, guys.
Right. Yes, definitely. All right. Well, we got a lot to talk about here, folks. So obviously, first and foremost, Nikki and Jonathan, with the Tour Championship being in your backyard, essentially in the ATL, you were there on site throughout the week. Dan, myself, and Trevor, we've kind of been watching from afar and maybe even a little bit on social. It seems like there's a lot of negativity around the event. I think anyone who's been, and I should also specify, we are recording this while the golfers are still on the golf course. So Scotty and the leaders have just teed off about 3 holes ago. Scotty has now opened it up to about a 7-shot lead at the time of me talking right now. But Nikki and Jonathan, you guys being there, what were the vibes like over there? I know it was really hot, but what was the feeling there at East Lake?
You want to kick it off?
I mean, honestly, it was it's a pretty course. You know, all the renovations they've done. If you've never been, you wouldn't know. Maybe you see a few sod lines here and there, but outside of that, if you've never really been, they did a great job as far as what they did with the changes, as far as aesthetically pleasing. I'm sure people followed kind of what the players have said. It's longer. This has changed, completely different. How it plays, I couldn't tell you. No idea. I've never played there. Probably never will. But other than that, the vibe around the tournament itself, I mean, it was active. I wouldn't say it was real. It didn't feel like a tour championship. I guess you would think it would draw the numbers out, right? It felt more. I've been to a few other tournaments like the Valspar, just a golf tournament, right? It didn't feel like it had any weight to it. Now, granted, people were friendly, the staffs were nice, the accommodations were great. You know, all of that was up to par, you know, especially bathroom situation, definitely on the better end of some I've been to where it's just a porta-john, right? It's not fun. As far as that go, definitely laid back. The fans there wouldn't call, you know, it's not Augusta. You're not Pebble, not these diehard fans that was like, I got to get to East Lake, right? It's just a lot of locals like, hey, you want to go out to the golf tournament? It was, you know, it was affordable and something to go do. But I enjoyed it.
That being said, it also, with it being in Atlanta, it's also Labor Day weekend, and every single year on Labor Day weekend in Atlanta, there is a trifecta that hits the city of the three like most opposite groups of people that you'll ever meet. There's the Tour Championship that happens every year over Labor Day. Then there's also the college football kickoff that happens in Mercedes-Benz, which is just a few miles down the road. And then there's also Dragon Con, which is a like comic book convention of sorts, but it's like
I'm
exploded
familiar.
in. Yeah. Okay. And so you put all of those people on to Marta at one time, and the city just like it. There's so much to do in the city in just one weekend. So I will say, having been there on Friday, the crowds were actually bigger on Friday, and the crowds, again, we're recording this on Sunday, and just from watching, the crowd looks significantly bigger today than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
But with you having the college football starting yesterday, with you having all of that going on Saturday, you could kind of see how people may choose those other events on a Saturday over, one of these things. Also, kids sports are typically on Saturday. So if you are local to the area, you may be going to your kid's sports game on a Saturday morning as opposed to the golf tournament. I think the heat also played a big factor.
Yeah.
I know on Thursday, I think it was, they had to call a medic over to the driving range for a fan who had passed out. So, and that was just the one instance that I had heard of. They were doing everything they could to keep people cool. They had several areas and little stations that were like little air conditioned building. I know Southern Company, who was one of the presenting sponsors, had different little giveaway things they were doing every day, like fans. They had little towels that people could dip into like ice cold water. We saw one guy who was like, "Oh, thank you so much," and he just took his whole shirt off and dipped it in the cooler instead of the towel. It would not have surprised me had we seen someone just jump into the lake. It was that hot. But overall, I mean, people were still excited to see the players that they were watching. You heard lots of cheers for them. Even surprisingly, it wasn't just people cheering for like your Rorys and your Scotties and your JTs. I mean, we heard a lot of cheers for, weirdly enough, people like Chris Kirk, who, that's not a name that you hear that often, but I remember I had just seen Atlanta Falcons player Kyle Pitts walk by and then heard someone yell Kirk, and I about broke my neck turning around because I was in my head making a connection and thinking, oh my God, Kirk Cousins is here. But then kind of forgot for a second I was at a golf tournament and that someone was actually cheering for Chris Kirk on the hole behind me. So, there were people who were actually very excited to see the players that they were there to see. There was one guy who even brought like a Norway flag, was out there cheering for Victor.
He followed Victor the whole day.
We sat and talked to a dad and his son from South Africa for a long time yesterday. So while there may not, majority of the people are probably from the local area, there were some people who are traveling out because it is the series finale. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like there were a lot of great things for the people on site. And, Trevor and Dan, those of us who were kind of watching from afar, let's just call it out too. I mean, the PGA Tour Communications Twitter account putting out that the record that Scotty Scheffler broke or whatever it was, I'm forgetting exactly the wording, but essentially it came across pretty tone deaf, understanding, of course, for the staggered start that the Tour Championships begins with, and Scotty starting at 10 under. But we were watching this from afar and we're like, okay, wait a minute. Everything that we're seeing on social suggests this isn't going that great. But we just heard from two people who were on site that, yeah, this was actually a really good vibe. Everything felt great. I mean, Dan, is this something from your perspective that there's just a disconnect? You have to go and experience it?
I think so to an extent, and unfortunately, and I'm not trying to trash talk anyone here. I think that's the tour zone doing. I think when they send out tweets like that, and I was just trying to pull it up, but I couldn't find it. But when they send tweets out about that like that, it makes it feel like it's an unserious event and not the tour championship. But then you get into the nitty gritty weeds of the actual event itself, and then especially, and this is what I wanted to ask Nikki, you and Jonathan about. Especially yesterday when you've got somebody like Sahith Theegala, who is in the thick of things and then calls that penalty on himself. It's almost like a reminder of, oh, wait, this is still a legitimately real golf tournament. There's still a lot of money on the line. And, I obviously between the Miami game and traveling yesterday, I didn't get a chance to catch a lot watching. I did catch a lot on social media. Naturally, that was the big thing of the day. So from you guys being out there, were you anywhere near that when it happened? What was it like out there? What was it? What did you guys get to experience as far as how that whole situation played out?
So once we didn't see the penalty when he called it on himself, but we did actually get to follow him a pretty good ways and his family. I mean, his family was 20 deep, every hole, walking with him the whole way. It was good to see, but his mindset the whole time, obviously you saw the back nine. This dude was unbelievable. That's honestly the most impressive thing of, let me assess this 2-stroke penalty on myself, even though he's like, I'd like to see some video evidence, we can review it. And it's unfortunate, but the fact that he just mentally stayed in it, whether that's just for who he is, like you said, a lot of money on the line. I mean, heck, if he's 2 strokes ahead of where he is right now, he's tied for second. That's $5 million. That's a huge amount to say, I'm not sure if I moved it. I kind of maybe saw some sand move. I mean, if that's a $5 million decision, that's props to him, right? And then to go out there and keep grinding. And it really is really cool to see his family they are all in every hole, every shot. They're having such a good time.
I haven't got a chance to edit this yet.
That was pretty cool to see, But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's kind of like that. It was a laid back vibe, right? But then when you go out there and you see the players are taking it serious, they're all, even the guys, in the back of the field, they're dialed in, they are playing a golf tournament where it's for us, it's lower field. Let's just go enjoy it. Scotty's so far ahead, and that's fine. It's still good golf, but to see them all still really compete and not, I'm not going to, because they are playing for something, 2-3 spots on the leaderboard. That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool
Definitely.
to see.
Yeah. And Trevor, I mean, as we watch this too, and to the point that Jonathan brought up about, there's still a lot of serious golf being played. I mean, as fans and as viewers of this particular weird, I'll use the word weird, format right now, there's a lot of scrutiny around it. People are still questioning it. I mean, where are you at right now with the way the format runs?
It doesn't make a ton of sense Scotty, like sitting here right now, it doesn't seem like Scotty's going to be challenged all week, right? And to earn $25 million, like he most likely will do this afternoon, you want to at least have him be challenged a little bit. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I don't know that I love the idea of the FedEx Cup, but I don't think the execution has ever been great since the beginning of it. And it always seems that they're kind of retooling it or changing this, changing that, to where I think maybe, and I don't know if this is a result of how it's set up or maybe not the greatest marketing for it. Nikki, you tweeted something that was like, maybe, more people could sign up for this tournament or show up. Like the average fan probably doesn't realize it's only the top 30 at the end of the year. They've been playing this entire year for this moment, in theory, that's the idea behind it. And that just isn't the case for a casual fan. So I don't know what they do, but it just seems pretty anticlimactic with the way they have it set up right now. And look, Scotty deserves it with what he's done all year long, but there needs to be a little more of an aspect of him going out and taking it, I think. And I'm sure there's going to be a couple of years down the road, there's going to be another iteration of the FedEx Cup that they've tweaked something or they do something different. I don't know what that is. I don't know if you switch to a match play format for the Tour Championship, which I don't think would ever happen. Maybe you give guys more strokes, depending on how they've, done outside of the leaders. I don't know what the answer is, but, I don't think that this format as it stands now is going to be here long term. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Yeah, you mentioned like kind of the average fan and their kind of awareness of it. One of my favorite things this week was just kind of listening to people as I was walking around and their conversations about it. There was a lot of people who I've heard one person asking, oh, when does Brooks Koepka tee off? I love his wife. I follow her on Instagram. And so, but if you're just a casual fan who only watches the majors, you're not going to know that he's not on the tour. And similarly, I heard somebody making a comment, two guys talking about how oh, it kind of stinks. There's only like 30 guys in this. Yeah. One guy was like, yeah, it's probably because it's on the opening weekend of college football and it's Labor Day. And like, none of these guys want to play golf and watch college football in the same weekend. And like, they're probably at like their lake house or something. That's probably why they're not playing in this. And I'm like, I just kind of kept walking.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's kind of a failure. So there's a disconnect somewhere. And I don't know how you fix that other than running a million like TV commercials or I don't know what the answer is, but like, yeah, the average fan has no idea what's going on.
Not only that, the guy who's about to run away and win this thing and collect that $25 million check literally called out the validity of the tournament that he's about to win. Like, he literally was like, this is not, you can call it the Tour Championship, but this is not the championship. He's like, it's not. Like, we talk about, for as much as we talk about Liv's, I don't know if goofiness is the right word, but for as much as we talk about Liv's structure, as far as it's a shotgun start, it makes it feel like you're playing a charity, Saturday weekend charity event. We're talking about pro golfers basically playing a handicap round of golf. Like, it's a staggered start. It's a handicap system. Like, it just, I understand that the old way didn't work when guys like Tiger and VJ wouldn't even have to show up for the playoffs and they would still win it wasn't the FedEx Cup back then, but they would still win the title for the year. I understand that didn't work and they had to revamp something so it was still alive. And then I understand that they didn't want to have years like, what was it? Tiger won or Phil won the Tour Championship, but then Tiger won the season long. So I understand they want to have the one guy, which, to be honest with you, for so far with what we've had, I think that was probably the best option. Like, you can have one guy, like, I think that was fun for everyone. Phil won and Tiger won. Like, you had them both holding up trophies at the same time. Like, you talk about two of the biggest names at the time. So I understand they wanted to revamp it because they wanted. Yeah, well, they hated it, but so I understand they wanted to revamp it again. So you only hand out one trophy at the end, but this isn't it either. So I guess credit to the tour for the fact that they've continued to tweak the ideas over the years, but this one ain't it either. So I guess it's time to go back to the drawing board again.
Well, in 2019, when Tiger won, he had done nothing that whole season and had a chance to win the FedEx Cup. But, Justin Rose ends up winning it. But
everybody loved it then.
Yeah, that was cool.
This is a great format.
But to be fair, I mean, golf is not the only sport where people complain about the playoff system. How long have we been complaining about college football playoffs? How long have we been complaining about, like, we're going to forever complain about college football playoffs. So
the one game baseball wild card play,
Yeah.
There was that one year in the NFL where a 7-9 Seattle team made the playoffs as a wild card. In New Orleans, it was like 10-5 that year and got left out because they didn't win the division or something like that. Or maybe it was down.
They had to travel to Seattle.
Or that's what it was. Yeah. As a 7-9. Yeah, exactly. Because they won the division because nobody wanted to win that year. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what they do. They could revamp it again next year. And some people are going to go, oh, thank you. And then a whole bunch of other people are going to go, what? This is nuts. Mm-hmm. You can't do it this way. And they're going to,
I don't think it'd be that difficult to edit, make the season end. And then if you want to have FedEx playoffs where you do it, some sort of match play, Scotty's ranked 1, playing the 30th ranked golfer, right? That guy's got a chance heads up, but is he probably going to win? Probably not. But make it, the winner gets $25 million. Just separate it from the season, right? Don't make it feel
The thing is, this format and the way that they set up this format worked until you had a situation like Scotty Scheffler. And so I think it's like, no matter how you revamp it, it may work until you have a one-off situation, you know, until you have a Tiger Woods, until you have a Scotty Scheffler, until you have one of those weird situations that is then going to go, okay, clearly this doesn't work because we don't want that to happen again. So it's like, that's when you get into the scenario of, well, you can't really make everybody happy, or you start having to have the conversation of how often are we going to have this happen, you know?
Well, they're lucky, you know, Scotty is more than likely going to win this, you know?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because there was a scenario that could, and obviously it's not going to play out now, but I apologize. I can't remember if it was either Ludwig or Victor Hovland. I can't remember which one. I do apologize. But there was a scenario that could have played out because they don't give official world golf ranking points for the Tour Championship because of the staggered start. So there was a scenario that could have played out that whichever one it was, had they won the Tour Championship, they would have won the Tour Championship without having an official World Golf Championship win for the year. Think about that one for a minute. How can you that would have been like saying that the 0-16 Detroit Lions got in the playoffs and then won the Super Bowl. You won the Super Bowl without actually winning a game all year. So it didn't happen. And you're right. They got very lucky that Scotty's going to run away with this thing. But think about I hate to say disaster. It's such an extreme word, but think about what that would have done if you would have had a guy. He didn't win anything all year. He literally did not win a single official world golf ranking event all year and then won your Tour Championship.
I mean, honestly, Keegan's a good example. I know he won the BMW. I mean, the band barely was top 50. The next week, he's fourth with a shot. Yep. I mean, what if he would have played lights out this week? You know, oh, well, he won. But still, it's like this man barely made the top 50, and now he has a chance to just hold the trophy. Like, that doesn't feel good, right? Like, I feel like all the players know that too, where they're going to say all the right things. Oh, yeah, I want to win a tournament, but everyone knows it's been Scotty and Xander's season, you know, like.
All I know is if this is like how the NFL playoff works, that just means that like the Falcons have a chance to win the Super Bowl. That's all I know.
I have an update, folks. I don't know if the Tour just inadvertently jinxed Scotty. We're going to see what happens because, like Adam mentioned, we're recording this while they're still playing. They are Scotty and Colin are on the fourth hole. The PGA Tour Communications Department just sent out an email saying, please see the attached with this victory document should Scotty go on to win the Tour Championship. They are on the fourth hole. So I think even the Tour has accepted the fact that he's basically going to win to the say. But also, by the time you're listening to this, if Scotty has blown it, the Tour just jinxed him.
Fair enough. There it is. So it's a 6-shot lead right now at the time of this recording. As Dan pointed out, they are on the fifth hole. They're through 4.
Sorry.
So no, you're good. So the common refrain that we hear about, oh, what can we do with the format? Sometimes match play does get brought up. And I remember a lot of times they say, we don't want to do that in case we run into some weird TV coverage thing. Like maybe there's a break and it's not good for TV coverage. We hear that same thing with the WGCs in the past, not so much with the Ryder Cup because they've kind of gotten that figured out. But what I really find interesting specifically for this week is we've kind of got the two worlds of media consumption colliding. We've got the traditional TV viewership, but on Wednesday we had the Creator Classic, in which case there were at least, I saw over 1 million people on the video itself, the static video that is still up on YouTube. At the time, there were about 120,000, I think was it, where it peaked, watching live. Nikki, Jonathan, were you able to watch some of the Creator Classic while you were on site?
Yeah, we watched the whole thing. We followed Paige and her group. And then we watched once they made it through 17 and then we're waiting to see who made the playoffs. We watched the rest of them come through on YouTube, and then we stayed on 18 to watch the playoff hole finish out. But honestly, we loved it. It was incredible. And honestly, and it started around what, 4 or 4? Yeah, 4 o'clock.
4:15 when they teed off.
But the entire day, we got there early that day because we took Logan that morning so that he could have a day to like go walk around the course and, you know, see some of the players on the range. And the whole day we saw so many kids and even adults wearing good hats and wearing Dude Perfect merch. And like, when some of the creators like went out to the range to practice, They were bombarding the range, getting autographs from the creators, and which actually made it a lot more open over there for Logan to get autographs from some of the professionals. But I mean, there were people flooding to get, to meet their creators, these people that they spend hours watching videos of on YouTube all the time. And the creators loved it too. They were like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this many people came out to see us play golf. So it was very cool. I think, in same as we just talked about with this format, there's ways they could probably improve it. There's ways they could probably do it a little differently, but I think for how it started, for this very first kind of, let's test the waters, see how this went, I think it went great. I think it was fabulous.
I agree. You could honestly, there was a situation. We were on the first tee box watching, or it was on 10 where they teed from. So they're going off. The groups are all, it's a pretty big crowd for a tee box. Everybody's been waiting all day. And it was funny. I remember seeing right there, the tee box right before they were going. I could see Xander, walking right behind them back into the, several they couldn't have cared less. Well, who's that guy? And it was just like more people were so more like ready for this event. And I guess that's just, and I enjoy YouTube golf. I follow a lot of them, and if you don't, I guess you're like, it's like, I don't know who these guys are. I don't want to watch a bunch of average Joes go play this golf course. But there were a lot of people that were interested. And, there are a lot of good golfers there. Several of them, former pros, current pros. These were not just average Saturday golfers. These guys knew how to play some golf. It was fun to watch, because there is that gap between, these guys that are maybe a little plus handicap scratch golfers and a tour pro. And to me, that was kind of the coolest thing. It's like, yeah, these guys are good, but it's like, man, just the gap, they still are so far behind an actual, PGA Tour pro. But yeah, like she said, they were all into it. That's what they do. This is their job. They do it for a living. So it was cool to see them get nervous, interact, have a good time. I enjoyed it. I think they'll continue with it.
Yeah, like he said, we saw Sepp Straka and Wyndham Clark come out. They were walking to the clubhouse, and they stopped behind the 10th tee, just behind the crowd, to just watch one of the groups tee off. And they're just standing there in street clothes watching. Not a single person is paying attention to them at all. They're all watching what's happening on the tee. And I'm like, Jonathan and I are looking, we're like, that's like, you guys know, they're like, right, they're not like behind a rope. They don't even have the security with them. They're just walking, it's like anyone could have come up to them at that point and talked to them. But nobody cared. They were all watching what was happening on the course, which I thought was great.
A literal U.S. Open champion was just going ignored.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I know. And like they're in Atlanta, and like Sepp Straka is a Georgia Bulldog. You would think. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm an old man yelling at clouds, so you guys know how I feel about this.
I would say, can we talk for one quick second about the fact that there was a literal card-carrying member of the PGA Tour playing that and didn't win, and he didn't win, and he didn't even win? Like, I'm just, first off, twofold. One, I don't know about having a guy who actually has his tour card who played in a PGA Tour event like a couple weeks ago in this thing, but whatever. But then also, like, how do you then not just blow everyone away? Like, you're literally a tour pro.
I'm glad you brought that up. So a couple thoughts there, because I think we're seeing this more and more in the landscape of golf content creation. Wesley Bryan, PGA Tour card carrying member. His brother, I believe, spent some time on tour, George, or at least caddied for him. I know that Luke Kwan, the eventual winner, from my understanding, also a pro golfer, not to the degree of the Bryan brothers, but certainly up there. Roger Steele, representing Chicago, he was up there. He 191 ball speed for you equipment junkies out there. My goodness. But it seems like, and shout out to our friends over at the Shotgun Start too, because they talked about this at length. These players that aren't the Scotties, Collins, Xanders, they are also becoming full-time YouTubers. So like, this is something that and I think the Bryan brothers, and certainly Wesley, went so far as to tweet about this and said, hey, this is what I do for my full-time job in addition to being a tour player. So Trevor, maybe we'll throw it to you too. Is this, first of all, do you consume a lot of YouTube content creator stuff on your end?
I do a little bit. I just want to say first, it sounds like from what you guys are saying, what I saw online, that the quality of golf was better than the Pebble Beach clam bake, which I'm not going to officially hold a grudge against them, but I'm on the fence because they've still never invited me to play.
Get Trevor in that tournament. Come on, guys.
Yeah, okay. But the quality is better. That's cool. But what I would say is like this resonates with the younger generations. Not so much. I mean, like I enjoy it, but I have a 7-year-old son. He'll come down, he'll turn on TV, and it's straight to YouTube. He's watching stuff like this. He loves to go out and play golf afterwards. So like for years now, we've been talking about growing the game and however you want to interpret that phrase. But this kind of stuff resonates. You have personalities, you have quality golf being played. You can learn something, you can laugh. I think it's fantastic. And it's also great to see for the first time that I can remember in a while where the tour is leaning into this kind of stuff. I think I've said before where Live Golf does a better job with like social media and YouTube and things like that. And that's maybe the one advantage they have over the PGA Tour in my mind. So it's good to see the PGA Tour kind of lean into this and embrace it as opposed to what they maybe have done in the past where they take down people's videos or tweets or stuff that they post on Instagram and almost threaten people that are creating stuff in the golf world. So that's a positive change. And again, I'm not bitter at Pebble Beach and AT&T. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too, because real quick though, but the dynamic, and I've gone on record, like I am trying to understand the allure of it, and I'm hearing what you're all saying, and I'm understanding what you're saying, and it's just something that I'm going to have to kind of wrap my head around. But the dynamic of, like Nikki and Jonathan, you were saying, the PGA Tour stars, players, active players who were playing in the tournament that week are just walking around and no one's paying attention to them. And I understand that it was probably the crowd who went to go watch their creators, of course. Correct. So there's that factor. But it's also like, does the PGA Tour realize that that's kind of a weird dynamic that they're introducing? Like their own players are being ignored for an event that they've brought these content creators on. I mean, that's something that just seems a little bit contradictory to me. I'm probably completely wrong on that, but it's just like, I raised my eyebrow on that. Dan, you had something.
Yeah, well, here's an interesting caveat too that I'm actually surprised more people haven't been talking about this when Trevor brought up Liv. So Liv's big thing, as far as the reason why they created themselves, so to say, was obviously the big thing. One of the big things on Phil's side of things was to give the golfers their NIL rights back, essentially, from a selling themselves standpoint. But also their whole thing was they wanted to appeal to essentially this group, this content creator group, Bryson doing the YouTube thing. But their whole thing was we were going to be different golf. We weren't going to go after the quote unquote old people who watch PGA Tour golf on a Saturday afternoon on CBS while they're taking a nap on the couch. We're going to put this stuff up on YouTube, and we're going to do shotgun starts, and we're going to appeal to this next younger generation. Okay, great. Well, guess what? They had a tournament a couple weeks ago with the feature of playoff between between Brooks and John Rahm. And I think they got like 198,000 viewers, right? This thing that the PGA Tour put on, which once again, they're basically going after that same demographic, that same live group with what they did. They did what? Adam, you mentioned at one point there were 1 million viewers. So they did 10 times the amount of viewers on YouTube that the average live event gets. So I do also find it funny, and nobody's talking about this, that the PGA Tour basically out of nowhere just created live and did it 1 million times better without even trying. Like, and without even involving any real pros. Like, yes, you had Wesley Bryan, but once again, more people know Wesley Bryan for what him and his brother do as Bryan Bros on YouTube than know him as a PGA Tour card carrying member. You mentioned the eventual winner, Quan, and Monday Q did a great thing like he always does about talking about his history. But once again, he's more known for his YouTube stuff. So they literally almost on accident created Live without creating Live, without having to pay a single one of these pro golfers, and did 10 times the amount of viewers without even trying.
The difference is that's Liv's brand. What the PGA Tour did this weekend was an extension of their brand. And so the PGA Tour can still keep their legacy, aesthetic and add this as a part of it
Yeah.
to be an extension of their brand in order to have that young, youthful, grow the game, like golf but louder, whatever part of it, without like diminishing or changing the legacy aspect of their own brand. It's a brand play. It's not changing who they are or altering who they are as a brand. It's an extension of that. And so you mentioned, they don't have to pay the players or make the players do all this kind of stuff. You're right. The players can still be who they are. And if they want to be a part of the legacy of the PGA Tour, they asked Xander in his interview this week, in his player interview this week, about doing YouTube content and about influencers and his opinion on that. And he said, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've been more traditional, a little more blue collar. And he said, I don't diminish the fact that influencers work hard, that what they do takes a lot of work, that what they do takes a lot of time and energy. He said, I don't have that kind of time. I don't have that kind of energy. I don't want to have to do that. What I want to focus on me. I want to focus on Xander. I want to focus on the stuff I have to focus on and let someone else do that kind of thing. And so case in point, the players have their own things they want to worry about. And these influencers, they're good at what they are wanting to do. And a lot of these influencers, they don't want to go pro. They want to just keep doing what they're doing. Like there's too much stress and pressure and other things in going pro. And so by keeping those two separate, you get to keep two different brand identities under the same umbrella and compete with LIV.
I mean, yeah, kudos to PGA Tour. Like in terms of I think it's one of those they saw this and honestly they're like, I don't really know what this YouTube golf is, but they obviously see it's getting eyeballs, it's catching steam. Let's try to get on this train before we miss it, and now it's like we just missed an opportunity. So at least, hey, at least they're trying, whether or not they understand or obviously the numbers are there, right? Numbers don't lie, money doesn't lie. And if that's going to get them a path to, hey, maybe we just have a whole separate YouTube, create it, whatever they want to call it, space, whatever. I don't think they're going to care of how the money gets there, right? I think good for them.
People are also shocked. Yeah.
After the viewership success of this, it makes you wonder, does the tour, outside of probably wanting guys like Brooks and Rahm back, it makes you wonder, does the tour really need LIV? Like, what do they need them for now? They just created something basically out of nowhere.
Yep.
And did from a straight viewership standpoint. And obviously, you mentioned as far as a on-course interest even standpoint, there are people that probably came out Wednesday just for that. They basically created something out of nowhere and did tenfold what LIV does, without even really having to. I don't want to say without trying. I'm sure that a lot went into putting that together, but they probably spent very little to no money having to put that together.
Right.
And it was a success from a viewership standpoint and from a people on the course standpoint. They basically did LIV better without really having to do much.
This feels like plan B.
Kids, if they're really grow the game, kids were watching,
Mm-hmm.
they're, do they know who Tiger is? Who knows? Maybe not, but at least, hey, they're out there, and that is tough. Like we're in that gap of, we got to see Tiger. We grew up watching it on TV. That was the only way. And now you've got this, and it's like, I don't know. We're in that middle spot but a 15-year-old, like, I get it. Growing up when I was 10, 11, I didn't want to watch this on TV, other than like, oh, that's Tiger Woods. I'll watch him. But so I get it. It's a little bit more personable watching these videos, a little more entertaining for a kid and that age group. So
plus they did a really cool thing this weekend, the whole week, where most golf tournaments that you go to, it's only like kids 2 and under can get in free, or it's like you have to be a member, like a junior PGA member, and you can get a ticket or something like that. But this weekend it was any adult that purchased a ticket could get up to 2 free youth tickets for a kid 15 and under. So, literally all you had to do was walk up to the gate. When you scanned your badge, you just pointed to the kids that you were bringing in and they went, cool. And they just let you in. And 15 and under. So, it wasn't like you had to have just babies. And we did see lots of babies. There were lots of strollers and babies and younger kids, but 15-year-olds. that you could, bring in, and it was 2 per adult. So there was a ton of kids and younger teenagers out there that were watching. We saw this really, really cute moment with this little kid and Akshay yesterday that we thought was really sweet. But I mean, there was, that was happening all weekend, and not just at the Creator Classic either. So,
Trevor, you had something earlier you were gonna say?
Yeah, no, I forgot.
I forgot.
I'm sure.
Was it
it
about
was really.
Vanderbilt?
Oh God, please don't. They don't even have a real football stadium. Adam.
Half of it's not even built.
No. Speaking of not real football stadiums, Northwestern
made my
apparently
brain
just
hurt.
created one. Yeah, I know.
That stadium, I know they won't do this because they'll lose too much money. They need to figure out a way, even if they don't keep that as their permanent stadium, because I know they won't. They need to figure out a way where even if they play like the first game of the year there every year, when they play like their bye game, when they play their FCS school or their school they're going to beat 60-0, they need to get a game there, especially this time of year. I know it's going to be interesting come December or come November when that lake's frozen and they're playing out there and you got wind and snow whipping off of the lake. But man, that was fun. That was an enjoyable viewing experience on TV. To see them playing at that little pop-up stadium there on their campus.
But we digress. And I know that as we kind of wrap up things up, and just a quick scoreboard update here on the ongoing Tour Championship, the lead is down to 5. Looks like Colin and Scotty are both even on the day. They're 1 and 2. Sahith is hot on their tail, a little bit back there, but still looking like Scotty might have this wrapped up. So we've covered a lot of ground today. Creator Classic, it does sound like there's some meat on that. There might be another one. We don't know when that's going to happen, of course, but I think you guys have all made a really strong case on the importance of it and how, growing the game certainly is an element that we've been throwing around a lot. The greater we in golf content and media. This is an interesting time, I think, to say the least. And, as we finalize or move towards the close of this PGA Tour season, I know we've got golf throughout the rest of the year as well. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out. And to the point that was brought up about how maybe this YouTube approach is kind of like that security blanket for the tour, assuming that they don't reach an agreement with Live Golf. And if we go off of what Rory McIlroy was saying and others prior to the tournament, it sounded more and more like there is just no progress being made in that realm. Nothing that Jay Monahan said during his press conference, kind of the State of the Union or the State of the Tour, leads us to believe anything different. It'll be interesting to see how they pivot on things. So any final thoughts on Nikki and Jonathan from you being there at East Lake?
I mean, I think they did a good job, good tournament. Let's, I'd go back, so we'll see how it finishes up,
Same. I just hope it's not as hot next year. Dear God. I don't think I have enough liquid left in me to keep sweating.
Nice.
The choice to have this tournament be the final tournament of the year and have it in Atlanta in September has always been odd to me. Like the whole point you're supposed to do is you're supposed to be in the South in February and March, and then you're supposed to move into the cooler areas, as the summer rolls along. So
right. A lot of people did say that, like, why are they not playing this on the West Coast? I mean, you could still have this course on the tour, but swap it with something, right?
You already have the Florida swing, and then you got the Masters. Why wouldn't you just kind of stick East Lake and make that a tournament, like after you leave Florida and then before you get to the Masters, like put it right in there as they're following like the natural progression of the country.
Correct.
I mean, we got nice places here. We can come to Chicago.
Avenel, Congressional, RTJ.
Hey, Adam, you're getting live. You actually will get to see Brooks. You will get to see Brooks. That person in Atlanta didn't get to.
Yeah.
Brooks.
I can go stop by Andy's Custard on my way to the golf course, the public golf course, Bolingbrook Golf Club.
Trevor, you're right though. Your area, Congressional, needs to get more loving. You're 100% right on that.
They play the PGA Championship there in 2075 or whenever that is. No, I will be at the Solheim Cup in a couple weeks though at
Good for you.
at RTJ. So that will be. But there should be a regular tour stop in DC. I will die on that hill.
Yeah. You and I get the short end of that stick, Trevor. I know. I think we get the President's Cup in a few years, but I don't know. That's all I got to say about that. anything I
Medina
can't
needs
say.
to get put back in the rotation too. I mean, I know that was very fun.
They just
Ryder
went through
Cup.
a reno.
I know Ryder Cups are set up differently than the regular tour events, but I mean, once again, that it's just an area of the country. Medina's built for it. It's an area of the country.
They'll have the President's Cup.
So,
yeah, they'll have that. Well,
Speaking
I think
of
go ahead.
Cup, speaking of Solheim Cup, what's the score on the Curtis Cup right now?
Oh, good
Oh,
point.
we're
my favorite new female golfer, the Asterisk. She was playing in it. That's the fact that a person is actually named Asterisk is just.
There was an
Her
asterisk.
Tally.
No, her last name is Tally.
Oh,
Asterisk
well,
Tally.
Still, what? So strange.
We're losing.
Yeah, I know, right?
by 1.
Is it a bet? Like
We are down by 1.
10.5 to 9.5. So.
Mm-hmm.
To bring this full circle, I have to ask one question.
Oh, GB and I won.
Jonathan, to bring this whole episode full circle. You mentioned obviously a big weekend in Atlanta. There's a lot of different demographics all commingling. The kickoff classic was obviously Georgia and Clemson. Clemson fans interacting with Dragon Con fans. Can you? How did that exactly? Play out or work? How does that kind of happen?
I think they're just as in awe and confused, befuddled as everyone else. It's just like, I mean, you got to be in that circle tight to really see. Like, and I've watched some nerdy things. Like, I will consider myself a nerd, and I'm like, I could never jump into that circle. I don't know. Like you said, it's so hot, and they're in such thick, heavy costumes of so many things that I was like, how's that comfortable and fun? I don't know. But hey, to each their own.
Honestly, I think the Clemson overlap into Dragon Con could work because Clemson's like its own kind of cult.
Yeah,
so
true.
like it can.
That's true. I can see Dabo, maybe heading up there a little bit. He might be into that.
He would go up there to like sprinkle holy water on.
Yeah, he's a strange
the one
guy.
standing with the signs outside, telling them they're all going to hell.
I will if we have 1 minute. I went to Chicago a few years back. Sorry, Adam, for work, and I happened to be staying at a hotel. I was staying at a hotel, and at the same hotel was the Midwest Fur Fest. And that was the most bizarre convention I have ever.
Why is there a fur fest, right? Like, why is it?
Adam lives in Chicago. He'll have to answer that. But
people,
they are very happy people.
Right?
It's a way of life.
Each their own.
It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
But hey, good for them. They found some friends. So yeah, whatever.
Hey, they spend money like everyone else, right? So I mean, they're helping the economy.
Dude, I bet you can Google crazy festivals that actually exist that you'd have. I mean, I'm gonna do that later. Google
incognito window, please.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Well, we're going to leave it at that. That was Nikki and Jonathan reporting from Atlanta's East Lake, and we're going to see where Scotty finishes. Maybe when this airs, it'll be over, hopefully. And then, of course, for Trevor and Dan, just as a quick reminder, also, please go visit our friends. Let me bring it up here for our YouTube folk at truelinkswear.com. Use promo code Unfiltered15. Buy yourself some stuff. They got some good sales going on. We will be back again soon. Thanks, everyone. Take care of yourselves.
Bye.